Breakdown. Breakdown hook. Breakdown hook. Instrumental section. Breakdown hook. Breakdown collection. Instrumental section.
Good morning from Alaska. I see we got just one person in here so far. Concave Reality. Haven't seen you in here before. By all means, if you're looking to engage, don't hesitate to request a mic, and we'll do a little mental jamming. See where your head's at today. Oh, I almost forgot. I got to set up the purple pill here. Give me 1 second. Almost forgot that part. Come on. Yay, it's working. Okay, so we got that base covered. Do a little restart on that thing. What do you got going on today, Concave Reality? Just interested in directed energy weapons. The topic that's the new all-rage topic. I wonder if X is having that issue again with spaces not showing up. No, I'm seeing them. Looks like we'll just have a late start for folks showing up. A couple of other larger spaces going on. Let's see that. This is resetting. See Sombro's space open. I was just in that one. I wonder if he shut it down. Let's find out. Excuse me. I'm almost out of coffee for Coffee Talk already. Let's see. It's still showing up over there, but I'm not seeing it over here. That's weird. Oh, and it looks like it's back to just me. So I'm going to throw on some more music. This one here is by Vox.
Take it, I can leave, I can do most anything. But the one thing that I need is the one thing that you bring. I can take it, I can leave, I can do most anything. But the one thing that I need is the one thing that you bring. I'd like to take everything about me, mix it up, pull it through, change like alchemy. I'd like to make everybody happy, but I can't, 'cause they won't, so what do I do? What do I'm melting away from everything, everything. I thought so. I can take it, I can leave, I can do most anything. But the one thing that I need is the one thing that you bring. I can take it, I can leave, I can do most anything. But the one thing that I need is the one thing that you bring. I'd like to get one last chance to fix me, fill it in, tape it up, paint it smooth. I'd like to get one last glance around me, drink it in, soak it up, then cut loose, cut. I'm melting away from everything, everything. I thought so. I can take it, I can leave, I can do most anything. But the one thing that I need is the one thing that you bring. I can take it, I can leave, I can do most anything. But the one thing that I need is the one thing that you bring. I can take it, I can leave, I can do most anything. But the one thing
Good morning there. We're a little short on listeners today, but I see we have the great Gambit, the genie. By all means, if you're looking to engage, don't hesitate to grab a mic. The X spaces have been a bit glitchy as of late, so it looks like it's going to be a delay before we get a bunch of people in here to be on topic. Directed energy weapons, making it finally to the front end of the conversation in the mass media. It's about time. I saw the request come in. I did give you the approval. So, good morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk.
Thank you for doing that.
You got it.
Hey, before you get started, can I just tell you something real quick? There's something happening in Michigan that I have proof of, and I need to speak with someone urgently. And I was hoping that you would be able to listen to my story privately, so you can kind of direct me where to go.
I don't do things privately. Be public is first and foremost. I mean, if you got something, then it's something, and if it's something, it should be shared. That's my 2 cents. Yeah. I mean, I'm someone who went public because I think it's worthy public conversation.
Okay. Whenever you want me to share,
fire away.
I'm willing to. All right. So I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I've been capturing what sounds like radio frequencies all over the state. And right now I'm facing a harassment where my thoughts are being read and AIs are being created with every person that I run into. And I'm being, it feels like I'm being attacked by directed energy weapons whenever I'm not like playing their game of answering questions. But these radio frequencies, you can hear them just by a basic recording of a phone. That's how loud these are. And it's coming out of like running electronics as well. And I've been trying to get Kent County Sheriff Department to investigate what's happening, but they seem to not, they keep trying to get like involuntary pickup orders on me. And my latest petition, which is kind of a little bit fraud because I didn't say Russian spies were after me, but it talks about how I believe that I'm being surveillanced by radio frequencies and that there's Russian spies following me. I didn't say Russian spies, but I'm seeing a lot of doppelgangers. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm seeing a lot of doppelgangers, and every time I see a person, it brings a thought of the person I know, like they're trying to extract information from me. And I've seen probably over 300 people. A lot of them were doppelgangers of the same person, but like different people that would look like them. But no one's listening to me. And I feel like Kent County is basically an experiment right now with directed energy weapons.
Do you have any actionable intelligence?
Do I have any what?
Actionable intelligence, evidence, proof of anything that you just said.
I have radio frequencies. I have over 100 recordings, and I can get recordings any time of the day.
What does that prove, sir?
It proves that I am telling the truth because they're saying I'm schizophrenic, but I'm hearing these frequencies.
What do you mean by hearing a frequency?
Like it sounds like a digital noise. If you're very faint digital noise anywhere I go. Like, and I
you wear a body cam and get body cam footage.
I was thinking about buying body cam footage, but yeah, it's basically whenever I record on my phone in a quiet place, I pick up the frequencies. And I don't know if you know Amy Holm, but she's a digital forensic specialist, and she's finding hidden communications, and it sounds like it's all like AI chatterboxes, like speaking. So I was just hoping you could kind of direct me on maybe if someone in the government that you know that I could tell the story to, because something's happening in Kent County, Michigan. There has to be. It's all people's thoughts are being manipulated. Like people are echoing my thoughts sometimes when I'm thinking, and they're also whenever I think of something, they'll start talking about the topic, and I know that they're not in on it. I think their thoughts are being manipulated to speak about topics that I think of.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to tell you. I don't have any connections for you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for listening, anyways.
You got it. Best of luck.
Yeah, this too shall pass.
Good morning, Mr. Parr.
Good morning. Got my Starbucks and
Nice.
the cheese Danish with. So
It's a beautiful thing. I'm
It
almost
is.
done with my coffee already. I'm gonna be. I got to drink the rest of this sparingly through Coffee Talk.
right, I came in late because I wanted to see what I could do, but I won 1,000 yesterday
Nice.
and the day before,
Hell yeah.
so I have that. But I'd like to do another $10,000 a week because it would help me a lot.
Hell yeah.
'Cause
I got my
that's
fingers crossed
savings.
for you.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. I love seeing other people succeed. It's a beautiful thing, especially like when it's the way that you're functioning, because it's like I almost look at like it's like legal robbery. Like you're just walking in, you're taking their money, and you're walking out, but it's legal.
Right. Just hand it over. I come in, I'm like, yeah, just hand it over. Give me that check now.
Give me that cash.
Give me the cash and or check.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have them give me a check because I don't want to have tons of bills on me walking around here.
Mm-hmm.
Get somebody will knock me over the head.
Yup. Let's see here. So I do have, as you know, the conversation in the mass media has finally shifted gears to being conversational at the very least regarding directed energy weapons, Havana syndrome, anomalous health incidents. So I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so far something has worked good, And, if it took what the military did in Venezuela to get it out, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very peculiar how it's being rolled out. Definitely seems to be perception management, narrative control to the extreme, just because of even, what was presented, the idea of sonic weapons, the symptoms that were shown, and then on the heels of that, we get this follow-up story about the U.S. purchasing a system that could cause Havana syndrome symptoms.
But an active denial system, which it is. I've been hit by one at Occupy Wall Street. They use one of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
The one you're familiar with. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm totally familiar with the active denial system, but it's my understanding that was what was most likely utilized in Venezuela was actually the LRAD, the long-range acoustical device.
Yeah,
Seems
I agree.
to fit
That's
the
what I
symptoms
got
list.
hit with.
Mm-hmm.
I got hit with that in Zuccotti Park
Yeah.
during Occupy Wall Street.
I don't doubt it in the slightest. What I'm finding interesting is how they're trying to paint the picture of us getting this from the Soviets as if we didn't have it to begin with, as if they're the bad guys for inventing it, and the only thing we did was try to acquire one so that, we can, get on the same page and catch up with the evil Russians and their highly advanced weaponry. I don't believe for a half a second that we didn't have this technology prior to that. If anything, we just acquired it to, do that. Why wouldn't we? If we had access to weaponry of our opponents, of course we want to get it, take a look at it, and see how we measure up against it.
Yeah, the early 90s documentation, alludes to the Moscow Institute and doctors and having this where you can talk into the microphone and it will subliminally put that into the guy or girl's head, and then we'll do it.
I do have, let's see, where do I pull this up at? I have an article that I wanted to read that we can go over. So let me switch that up on that screen. And then I will pull this up here. Oh, wrong screen here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this was put out by Morgan Phillips. I think it was Fox News. Title of the article is What the Alleged Sonic Weapon Used in Venezuela May Actually Have Been. And I'm going to read this, so that means I can't see the other screen right now. So if people are putting in a request, you'll just have to stand by until I'm done with this article. Claims that a mysterious sonic weapon was used in Venezuela have fueled speculation about exotic U.S. military technology and its potential effects on the human body. One eyewitness account from a Venezuelan guard shared on social media by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claimed the weapon brought Venezuelan and Cuban security forces to their knees, quote, bleeding through their nose and vomiting blood. In regards to this story, I'm just going to chime in here. I find it odd that there's only one eyewitness testifying to this. So that's peculiarity number one. Back to the article. While the Trump administration has not confirmed what weapon, if any, may have been used, defense experts point to a well-known acoustic device that has been in use for years. Known as a long-range acoustic device, it's been described as the voice of God. According to Mark Cancian, a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel and Senior Advisor for the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the device deploys a directed short-range cone of sound. It's not like a microphone, where everybody's neighborhood. It's only within this cone, said Cancian. Boy, that's... I'm just listening. Like, it's... To say it's not like a microphone, I think he meant a speaker. So there's a lot of miswording and misspelling in this article, actually. U.S. operators may have deployed it as they were landing on the ground in Caracas, Venezuela, as a way to disorient security forces and warn them to drop their weapons. LRADs can project spoken commands at intense volumes or emit a loud, piercing tone designed to get attention and deter movement. At close range, the sound can be painful and disorienting, and in extreme cases, can damage hearing or rupture eardrums. But the devices are not designed to cause lasting physical harm. And I want to just jump into that sentence. This is where they play with words, folks. It said, but the devices are not designed to cause lasting physical harm. That doesn't mean that they can't. It just means that that's not their primary intention. It's a little bit of legalese. And if you pay attention to conversations about non-lethal weapons versus lethal weapons, what you'll find rapidly is that lethal weapons exclusively are lethal, like a gun, right? I could say if I shoot you in the leg, well, it's non-lethal, but it really depends on how it's applied. So what we find when they're playing games with the legalese of directed energy weapons is simply because they have a capacity to be used in a non-lethal way, they present them as non-lethal as if they have no lethal capacity, when in reality they often do. But
FBI has another category called
go ahead.
Confusion weaponry.
Gotcha. Yep, just another form of directed energy weapons for sure. But back to the article. It can cause pain and temporary disorientation and can cause ruptured eardrums, but is not designed to inflict long-term damage. That's literally the article repeating itself. So repetition, repetition. They want you to believe that it's not designed to inflict long-term damage. U.S. forces used them for crowd control in Iraq when Iraqis got too close to U.S. military installments, according to Cawffee. The devices can reach up to 140 decibels of sound. The intensity drops quickly with distance and angle. This is why operators can stand nearby but outside the beam. Other defense analysts say the account raises questions that go beyond conventional acoustic devices. For decades, the Pentagon's Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, has studied non-lethal technologies intended to temporarily incapacitate adversaries without causing permanent injury. Publicly available research has explored acoustic and electromagnetic effects designed to overwhelm the senses, disrupt balance or motor control, and render targets briefly unable to fight or maneuver. Can Gassapoglu, a defense analyst at the Hudson Institute, said such research has fueled speculation about more advanced incapacitation systems, but stressed there is no public evidence any experimental DARPA technology was used in Venezuela. There are some non-lethal technologies that DARPA has been working on, including acoustic weapon systems, sound waves, and also some neurological weapon systems that do not kill, but cause an unbearable sensation that you feel that you simply become inoperable in the battlefield, he said. While the symptoms described in the post shared by Leavitt are unverified, they align closely with examples of DARPA research. The White House and Pentagon did not respond to a request for comment. In addition to the reported sound defense, the U.S. launched a cyber attack that knocked out communication systems as operators were landing in Caracas, Venezuela. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly, Trump previously said. We were on guard, but suddenly all our radar systems shut down without any explanation, the local guard said in the account shared by Leavitt. The next thing we saw were drones, a lot of drones, flying over our positions. We didn't know how to react. Once operators were on the ground, at one point they launched something. I don't know how to describe it, he said. It was like a very intense sound wave. Suddenly, I felt like my head was exploding from the inside. The effects were extreme, according to the guard. We all started bleeding from the nose, he said. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground, unable to move. We couldn't even stand up after that sonic weapon, or whatever it was. The physical effects described by the guard go well beyond what experts say LRADs are known to cause. Vomiting blood, in particular, is not a typical reaction to acoustic exposure, raising questions about whether the account exaggerates the effects, misattributes their cause, or reflects a different factor entirely. Experts caution that while directional acoustic devices are real and widely used, there is no publicly known sonic weapon capable of producing the extreme injuries described, and no official confirmation that any such system was used in Venezuela. Venezuela's Interior Minister, Diosdado Cabello, said 100 people were killed in the Maduro operation. Cuba has said 32 members of its security forces, which were guarding Maduro, were killed in the operation. 7 U.S. service members were injured in the operation, but none were killed. So that's that article, folks. And I just want to start with directed energy weapons are real. They're unbeknownst to most people. Since 2020, I've been public trying to get people to focus on the dilemma of monopolized technology being wielded by factions that are operating without oversight. So this might be new information to folks that directed energy weapons exist. But as
And
stated
don't
in the
let
article,
law enforcement and the Justice Department paint it as confusion weaponry, which makes it sound innocent and harmless. It's not at all.
it's not harmless in the slightest. And they're trying to discount the severity for which they can be applied. So if you go onto YouTube, there's a channel called Genesis, Genassys. That's the current iteration of the company that's referred to in the article. LRAD was a company titled after the technology. LRAD's a technology. LRAD was a company. They changed their name to Genesis. You can go to their YouTube page and they literally have like commercials for their product, training videos for their product. You can see it for yourselves. There's a dial on the device. There's a green zone, there's a yellow zone, and there's a red zone. The operators are trained to never put the device in the red zone. That's bad. So this is where I get at the whole lethal, non-lethal. The green zone and the yellow zone, non-lethal, no problemo. But the red zone that they're trained to not put it into is still available on the device. You can turn it into the red zone. So it's very shady what's going on and how this technology is being rolled out to the world for conversation seems to be very contrived. I would like to see other testimony from folks that are supposedly boots on the ground to give us more perspective, because I do feel like this singular dissemination stream is most likely a very contrived effort to apply perception management in regards to the topic of directed energy weapons. Hey, good morning there, Mr. Pix. That's what you said to go by, Pix. Welcome to Cawffee Talk.
Yeah, morning, Bill.
How long ago was that Occupy Wall Street now, Par? My brain, I feel like it was just a little while ago, but
Like a decade.
yeah, it's been a while
long
now.
time.
And then there was also there was something that happened in Seattle. Was it the WHO, the World Health Organization, if I remember correctly, there were reports of the LRADs being used on the crowds out there also, but I can't remember. I feel like that was before Occupy Wall Street. Do you have any recollection to that Seattle event that I'm trying to recall?
No, I mean, Zuccotti Park was 2011. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think the World Health Organization event in Seattle was prior to that, and there were also reports from the protesters of the LRADs being used against them.
I mean, I could literally see the device because NYPD was using.
Was it the stuff that you saw vehicle mounted or backpack stuff?
Yeah, it was like backpack stuff because they, they're in a closed. The park is small, filled to the brim with people, and they like had set it up on some, something. It was like a concrete, thing that was sitting there that people used to sit on, but they just set it up on that and flipped it open.
Okay.
I also went to Occupy Central, which was the austerity protest in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Which was of the same caliber as Wall Street. And so I met with those guys. I did not see the Chinese using any kind of LRAD weapon against them.
Gotcha. Just gonna say, I see we got a couple of new folks into the room here. Bringing Wolf up right now. You guys just missed. I just read an article regarding the directed energy weapons being utilized in Venezuela. My criticisms of this topic are that we're only getting a single source stating this. I wish we had more than one person's opinion of what went on there. But as stated in the article also, I'm more focused on expressing to the world that this is a real technology, that directed energy weapons exist, and I'm at least thankful that this activity is bringing the conversation to the forefront. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is that I feel that, I've been trying to, bring this out, and it's been quite the uphill battle, but now it seems people are going to be less capable of ignoring it. We can bicker about the details and what type of systems that are out there, but at least that's good, because the conversation is beginning to gain traction in people's minds as legit technology that's been out there for a while. So I'm at least happy for that. I'm trying to see what Wolf put up here. Oh. Let's see. Oh, it seems to be more LLM related than directed energy weapons at first glance.
Can you put that article up or in the purple pill?
It's in the purple pill. Oh, you mean the other article?
Yeah.
I don't think so, Par. I apologize. Okay. I have it.
No worries.
I was pulling it in through another laptop just for me to read it. It's not technically on the same system that I'm running this space on. So just I'm not as technologically as advanced as you.
I mean, you could DM it to me and I'll put it up.
I might be able to do that. Let me see if I can pull that off, actually. Let's see. Oh, why doesn't it want to copy? Oh, come on, dang it. That is so weird. There we go. Copying it. And that means I got to go over to you.
Right. And we'll
I'm getting there. All right. I just DM'd it to you.
Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good morning. I shared a kind of a yellowy tinge slide in the bottom.
Yes.
And although I tend to use it for LLM interrogations, it can map over very easily and very quickly onto any institutional news story. It allows someone to follow a simple checklist so that once they do it enough, they're kind of trained to already do this without needing the checklist to basically vet the framing and perception management scaffolding that mainstream media is hung on and then presented to the public.
Excellent. That's a nice tool to have in the toolkit. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's nice to be able to apply scrutiny to get through the smoke screen, so to say, of news articles.
If you take a brief moment, just a minute or two, and consider what you just read in light of some of those questions, the observations you were making in real time, just with your own naked reason, are going to be reflected in that document. I was listening while on YouTube, not YouTube, on Twitter, but with your screen being shared. I wasn't in the chat. I was looking at the other stream, I guess. And once I started hearing you speak, I thought, we can turn that into a heuristic, right? A human algorithm. Let's do it. And there it is.
Nice.
It is now the first post in the nest. I wrote for Eric Hacker at Deciphering TV, and then the article is after, in the link after it.
Thanks, Par.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not happy about the activities that the U.S. is engaging, but if I can just simply say that there's a silver lining to this dark cloud, it's just that this topic is coming out of the shadows, and I really hope that more people get interested in the potential problems that this technology
they can't
can bring us all.
silently do this to us anymore.
That's the way I look at it. Yeah, this is the cat's out of the bag, so to say. Directed energy weapons are now, on the coffee talk table of conversation. I am pleasantly surprised that I do see a slight increase of activity even on the X spaces. I mean, granted, I don't follow a lot of people, so I guess I even get limited purview of what's moving around. But even in that limited purview, I'm seeing a lot more directed energy weapons conversations, mostly in the targeted individual circles, which makes sense. I'm sure they're, jumping for joy that this conversation is getting out there.
Yeah, Ben won, so I fully support them jumping for joy. I'm very happy as well, because especially when Tupa put out that video that shows Grazes testifying about the 1991 device he saw, because
Okay.
I'm sure it probably was used on me, but I can't prove it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the benefit of these technologies is they basically have 100% plausible deniability. Even just, claiming that it's being used against you makes you sound like a kook, and then spooks can flood the conversation as well for the express purpose of sounding like kooks to dilute the conversation, to make it seem even kookier. If you smell
I
what
mean,
I'm cooking.
I complained to the FBI, so at least now they'll think I'm less of a fucking nutcase. I hope, right?
Yeah, it's quite the quagmire. I'm identifying a problem without offering a solution, so to say, which is not the angle I typically ever want to operate from. Like I think of like on the job site when I see something, that I point my finger at, I typically want to immediately offer a solution. But I think of my activities in regards to this topic. It's like being Paul Revere, right? I'm just warning people. So I don't know the extent of the, in this Paul Revere theory. It's like the British are coming. I don't know how many guns they have. I don't know anything. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know, but I'm still going to sound the alarm. The British are coming.
Yeah.
The directed
Good on
energy
you,
weapons. The directed energy weapons are here. Forewarned is forearmed. I don't know what to tell people to do about it other than start upping their own research and understanding. I have suggested that people start looking into what's commonly referred to as the symptoms list for Havana syndrome or anomalous health incidences, because that's going to be the ability to appreciate that something's going on and something's changing. Pay attention to yourself and your loved ones. Know thyself, know those around you. And if they're starting to show the symptoms of modern weapons of war, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, make no mistake. These are weapons used for war.
There's something called the Imperial Boomerang. I've just shared a Wikipedia snip from it, and it basically relates this. The Imperial Boomerang is a concept that repressive techniques to control colonial territories by governments will eventually, those repressive techniques used overseas to control war zones or colonies, they'll eventually be used domestically when it suits power. And we now are in a fully developed open phase of that with the ICE crackdowns that are not just unconstitutional, they are anti-constitutional, openly and bluntly.
Yep. I don't know if you guys recall. Remember when drones first came out as weapons of war? And we were told they're weapons of war that will exclusively be used in foreign nations for killing our enemies or gathering. But we were told that don't worry, they'll never be allowed on U.S. soil. Does anybody remember that?
I don't remember that qualification, but I know you slightly well enough to take your word for it.
Fair enough.
They developed them analog ones during the 70s, believe it or not. Like a RF control one.
Yeah, it's something that stuck in my head because even I think it was 2012-ish. I was working up in the North Slope oil fields, and there was a team up there with some drones that were, presenting themselves as doing, scientific research by flying these drones out over the ocean north of Alaska. And even at that time, I of course, played super curious, got pictures of everything going on and asked them questions. And if I recall correctly, like this was still the time period where it was like drones. I thought those weren't allowed to be used in the U.S. And the stuff that they were using at the time, I have since seen way more pictures of highly advanced drones, and this stuff now in hindsight absolutely looks like the military grade stuff that we see being used in foreign lands. So was this just once again a situation where military or weaponry was being utilized under the false pretense of science? I suspect so.
Yeah, in Santa Clara, I used to sit out on. I worked at Acer Advanced Labs, and I would sit out on the loading dock and smoke. We faced like there was a fence, and then behind that fence was Lockheed. So I'd fucking seen them shooting straight up MQ-9 Reapers, straight up in the air, and then they're coming back down. They're practicing with them.
Oh, that's another funny one that I've said publicly before, but it doesn't come up a lot. So in the grand scheme of highly advanced technologies, weapons of war that have been around for a really long time before the public finds out, in 1994, I witnessed the use of exoskeleton type legs being used by the Navy SEALs in New London, Connecticut. We had an event, submarine base. There's plenty of SEALs. They did a situation.
You mentioned the training
with
the special, yep.
Yeah. So these guys, we got notification on base, like, hey, all hands, be aware that, between such and such dates, I think it was like a week-long event, that they stated that they were going to separate all the SEALs on the base, Team A, Team B type stuff. SEAL Team A was going to be the attackers. SEAL Team B was going to be the defenders. And these guys were going to be doing out of the ordinary operations, so we had to be notified. And then we were also told, operate as you normally would, with this understanding that this activity is going on. So on a particular evening, I got caught doing a balls to four watch at the quarterdeck of my barracks. And a good friend of mine was the roving watch. And it was the middle of the night. I don't know. We'll say it was like 2 a.m. or something. Like, there's nothing going on. Pitch blackout. The barracks that I was at was on a perimeter fence. If I remember correctly, it was probably, a ridiculous, it was probably like a 8-foot chain link fence with a concertina wire going on along top. So this sucker was tall. We had dipped out into the smoke pit, having a smoke, and the fence line had a batch of grass on the exterior side of it before there was a whole bunch of trees. Sitting there, smoking a butt, having a grand old time, and then all of a sudden, I see some SEALs coming out of the trees. One guy runs probably about halfway between the trees and the fence and drops down on a knee in like a I guess I'm not a gunsman. Gene probably knows better, but it was like some sort of a covering position. He drops down. He's the guy keeping an eye out, and then everyone else starts running one by one towards the fence, drops down on a knee, and then leaps over the fence in a single bound. I witnessed this with my own eyes in 1994. These guys came out of the woods, jumped over this fence like it was nothing. So I said to my buddy, the roving watch, I said, hey, don't look, but look behind you. So he casually turns around and sees what's going on as well. And he looks at me and he's like, what the, I said, follow me. We go back into the quarterdeck. I grab the landline phone. I called base security. And I said, hey, how's it going? This is Seaman Recruit Hecker, BDQ 430. I said, I want to report that there's a disturbance outside by the perimeter fence. Said, I'm going to send my roving watch out to investigate, but I highly recommend that you dispatch a security team immediately. They, aye, copy that. Everybody hangs up the phone. I turn and I look at my roving watch, whose eyes are popping out of his head. He's pissed at me. He goes, you're gonna send me out there to get my ass. I said, hold on a second, bro. I'm like, you know who they are. I know who they are. I said, you stay right here. I grabbed my logbook and I just wrote in the logbook, the date, the time, and I said, sent my roving watch out, requested base security, and roving watch returned reporting nothing found. So I covered his ass, and I figured let the base security get the freaking the butt end of the rifle to their face. I'm not going out there armed with a flashlight and a cigarette lighter. So, yeah, I saw those
Dude,
exoskeletons.
it's the power of smoking.
Yeah, I knew who they were. It was all good. We would have ran up and said, "Halt! Who goes there?" And then would have woken up in the infirmary.
Eric, why would you have woken up in the infirmary? They were on a training exercise, yes, to train both themselves and you?
They were in a training exercise where I presume that they would have reacted to me in a way that they were trained to do, which would most likely have been to subdue me in some capacity, and being the low-level expendable personnel, I don't think for a half a second they would have hesitated in knocking me out in some Navy SEAL method that they're really good at and happy to apply when given the authority to do it. The security on a submarine base is taken extremely seriously, so I do not doubt that there's a level of violence in this drill that would be acceptable. I don't think they would have killed me. I don't think they would have been overzealous in fucking me up, but I think they would have been obliged to incapacitate me somehow as part of their training.
Right, at least a sleeper hold or something. Right?
Something, yeah. They certainly can't just look at me and be like, "This is just a drill. Carry on." Like, that ain't happening.
So, was it a dual purpose test to also test your role as a watch person?
In a way, technically, yes, absolutely, because we were supposed to function as normal. Like, officially, I should have sent my roving watch over there at the very least to investigate, instead of just logging it erroneously in the logbook. I didn't want to see my buddy get hurt, technically. I mean, those obviously it wasn't a Chinese or Soviet invasion in New London, Connecticut that night.
Did you hear any follow up about how the other, I guess the other security response fared in response to that log you put?
No, I know that they they arrived at the fence line at one point, but I imagine the SEAL team had already skedaddled in their exosuits. I mean, it did absolutely look like our guys' gear as well.
That's something that could be mimicked, however.
Oh, of course.
Yes?
For
The
sure.
layers
For
that-
sure. Totally possible. I would imagine if it was actually foreign agents. Oop, my mute button. I was just going to say, I would imagine if it was actually foreign agents, that would have been a bad night for them as well, anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, you had an announcement, so
Yeah.
you're like, I'll let it go.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it was just being realistic to the situation. There's no reason for innocent people to get rifle butts to the head. I gather in hindsight, I was accurate in my assumption because the base didn't get taken over.
Yeah, also the next day would have been much different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because, yeah, it was reported, there was a response. It was just, I mean, it was a whole bunch of activity that was officially way over my pay grade. I imagine technically the SEAL team, if A was the attackers and B was the defenders, SEAL Team B was probably super stoked that somebody saw it and reported it. So for whatever those guys were doing for their drill, there's still a high probability that I fucked up SEAL Team B's stealthy intrusion.
Yeah, you're like, sorry, I'm just a submariner here doing my job.
Yeah, I still reported it, so effectively the element of surprise was ruined at that point. Caught him immediately coming over the fence at that time of night. I mean, what are the odds?
I'm curious about something relating to the article you read about DEWs and specifically the stimulation of the sensation of hearing a voice in one's head.
Yep.
I haven't ever spoken to someone who I can reasonably trust had an experience like that wasn't more likely explained by stress or just mental disturbance. And I don't mean that as a character assassination, but I'm wondering, with your circle of friends or other people that you've interacted with, have you heard what you believe is a verifiable, or at least verifiable enough, first-hand account of what it feels like or sounds like to
I've
have
been hit
that
by an LRAD.
used on one?
And it's honestly, it's like, it's as if somebody's throwing their voice near you.
Yeah, well, if I would, my answer to that would be no. Excuse me. I have not heard from anybody that I would consider, short of Parp saying this stuff here. I've never heard anybody state that they were involved in a situation where A, it was known to have been deployed, and they stated that they suffered under the application of the deployment. With that being said, my understanding of the technology existing, right? So I wholeheartedly understand how it functions and that it exists, okay? And I've said this before, that it's very important for people to know thyself, because when the thoughts are applied, you should not be able to distinguish it any differently than a thought in your head, even in your own voice, or that of a voice that you're familiar with. And I will go so far as to say that there have been times where even in my own head there would be, I guess I would say, thoughts that seem very out of place, that don't fit, that have given me pause to consider, like, is that one of these circumstances? But that's as far as I could go with it, because, I mean, it's not like there was a van sitting outside of my house. I have no fucking clue. It's just because I'm considerate of the concept existing, and because of who I am as a whistleblower, I wonder if these things are being applied, but I would never go so far as to say, like, I absolutely know. I'm concerned. But just like every other aspect of what I know about these technologies and why I speak about it publicly is because, to me, it's very fucking concerning.
Yeah, and for example, I would state that the thrown voice that I heard was not a voice I'd ever heard before. Just a monotone, like sounding like the average 20-year-old dude. So,
what was the voice saying when you heard it?
Just remain calm. It wasn't telling us to disperse, and it was not in a hurt mode or anything.
So everyone else was hearing it too.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I mean, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine was there.
There you go. So this is basically the LRAD being used in crowd mode, so that everyone can hear it, which is, as it's claimed to do in emergency situations, it can be used as a communications device, which would be par for the course. Get it?
Yeah.
Sometimes I crack myself up. Yeah, I mean,
so
in the benign
Crosby-
aspect,
Crosby-
that's what they say these things are for, right? That they often call it a hailing device, emergency communications, ship-to-ship communications at great distance. So this is like, even when they're doing resupplies in the Navy out at sea, or maneuvering, they have LRADs because they can shoot a voice from one ship to another at distances where somebody might look like a little dot and just be waving their hand.
Exactly.
Right. So a lot of the presentation of these devices is for extending line of sight communications beyond which distance a man can yell. But
like Crosby from Crosby, Stills and Nash, he was there. Mm-hmm. Susan Sarandon was there. All the fucking protesters that know him. Ben from Ben and Jerry's was there. He served me vanilla ice cream, and that was cool.
Yeah, but back to that question, Wolf. I have never met a person or had them approach me where I would say I could be convinced that it occurred, but I will also go as far as to say is that's the benefit of these technologies is it is like next to impossible to prove that it's being applied to you. So it's quite the catch-22 situation. But again, to me, it's one of the main reasons that they went in the direction with these types of weapons. I mean, in my limited experience with the military, God damn, do they love the term plausible deniability. And especially in the submarine service. I mean, the submarines are a vehicle version of plausible deniability. A missile comes up out of the water, takes out a fucking target, and everybody can twiddle their thumbs and be like, I don't know what happened. How dare you accuse us of that? Can you prove it? Well, fuck no. No one can prove it. That's what fucking submarines are all about.
That's why we have a whole underwater microphone field along the Atlantic on my side over here.
The SOSUS array. It's fucking all over the planet.
Yep.
It's all over the goddamn planet. Hydrophones, passively listening to every activity everywhere. But then they'll act like they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we heard that. Well, we don't know what the fuck.
It's like on 9/11 when all of a sudden they had no idea what was going on in the airspace in the whole country. It's denial. Yeah, it's this is going to be a hard bridge for humanity to cross because of the inherent deniability of the activities of these technologies. I'm
There was a bill that Harry Reid had sponsored in Congress to outlaw the ability of this technology to be used via satellite.
Yeah, via satellite.
Yeah.
How about by the
we
backpack
will enslave the
units?
fucking Earth.
the backpack units that are being marketed by Genesis on YouTube right now.
But just imagine the Russians decide to enslave humanity, launch all the satellites to do it.
I should do
stuck.
I should do an X video live stream where I just pull up videos from the Genesis YouTube page, and we take their own information and dissect it. Because it's publicly available. The stuff's been out for years. It's just amazing to me that nobody looks into it. You can go right to the manufacturer of it and listen to them brag about what can be accomplished with it. Even in the article that I read, I mean the voice to skull, as mentioned in the article, I mean there's really no debate because the LRAD product marketed currently by Genesis states that it can do these things. You're just literally pinpointing one person in the crowd. You can be that precise. And then you speak to that one person. That is the voice to skull, voice to God, voice of God, whatever you want to call it. It's making one person hear voices that no one else hears. They're not denying it. They're marketing it. But boy, it would be challenging to prove that activity was applied to someone. I mean, it would be challenging. This is why I tell people know thyself. It would be challenging for a person to know it's being applied to them, to even consider reporting it. Like, that's to me the scarier part, is how do you even know when it's being applied? If you don't know thyself and you lack the discernment to divine out that there is an intrusive thought being applied, that, you know, this, you may not even know that it's happening to gripe it.
That's what they're counting on.
Yeah, you know. It's like you're shooting a gun at someone and they don't realize they're being shot at. They don't even notice the bullet holes. Like, it's a really weird dynamic.
Hey guys, I was tied up earlier. I want to go back to the discussion from about 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago.
Go for it.
Eric, you were correct in pointing out what you pointed out. I actually was very curious about the same thing. There is only one source of that as far as what happened in Nicaragua. And Karen Levitt put out a tweet. Stop what you're doing. Everybody read. It felt, very peculiar to me too, like it's propaganda. And the question I have is, who is that message actually intended for? Is it intended for the public? Going back to what Wolf was saying, I can draw a direct line between the drone flap in New Jersey, which I think was a test run for integrated drone systems, probably run by Thiel and Palantir, and what they've learned in Ukraine as far as drone warfare, to what they actually, did in Venezuela. And anybody that thinks that these guys are not, I mean, look what today, Trump said that he's thinking about, invoking the Insurrection Act in, I think, Minnesota. The point being is these people are capable of anything, and they have technology that is so far beyond what most people even can conceive of. This technology has actually been on the books since the late 60s, early 70s, and they've perfected it in ways that nobody can imagine. And will they turn it on, the American public? If they're threatened, yes, I think they will, and they're threatened. So buckle up.
Yeah, it's kind of where my brain is at on this. Is it's they're getting everybody riled up to create justification for applying this domestically.
It certainly feels that way. Look, Trump is so paranoid to begin with, and he's creating shock troops with ICE. And, there was an interview that was done with the New York Times, and then again, there was another Reuters piece, I think. And Trump's now saying, I don't even think we need an election. I mean, people better wake up to how fucking broken this monster is, and he will do anything to perpetuate what they've begun, which is a fascist, leveraged takeover of the American reality. And the links that this goes back to, which really is frightening, I think that Putin was able to fill up Trump's empty brain with what he, gleaned from Alexander Dugin's fourth political theory, which basically divides the world into about 4 different, super regions that are controlled by authoritarian fuckheads. And I think that Putin said, hey, what you need to do, look at I put it in my thread about this technate idea that evidently Musk's grandfather had as well. But what they want to do is they want to say, okay, you take care of, Oceania, basically the Americas. We'll take care of Europe and Russia and probably the Mideast, and we'll let the Asian sector be a fight between China and India. And this is actually what they want to achieve, I think. And it's frightening as hell.
I agree. I think this is all calculated activity, collaborations going on at levels that, we, the average mortgage payers, aren't aware of, and they're slowly escalating. I appreciate that you use the term paranoid with Trump, but I guess I'm more concerned that it's not so much paranoia as just simply being calculated and part of the team that's making said calculations. Paranoia to me would mean that he's like afraid. I don't think he's afraid. I think he's just calculated and following a plan that's not to our benefit.
Oh, I think he's afraid. I think he's worried about accountability. He's been running from his own legacy for his entire life. Excuse me. This administration is an empty vessel that has now been filled up by all of this Leonard Leo, Heritage Foundation, insane, paternalistic, authoritarian, corporatist, fascist nonsense. And he's more than happy to go along because it is basically the way he thinks anyway. So, he's asleep. Good God, look at the pictures. There are other people that are doing the fucking real monkey work behind the scenes, beginning with Miller. And these people are really bad, really, really bad. And Senator Tom Tillis is a friend of mine. He's from my state. I know Richard Burr very well. He's now not in Congress. But the point being is, if you don't have rational conservatives stand up and yell stop, and you're seeing some of this happen to a certain degree, but not to the degree that's required. The point being is, Trump will continue to do whatever he can get away with for as long as he can get away with it. And
yes, thank you, Bill. Bring up good points.
Who's going to stand up and stop it? If it's not the actual members of the GOP that are finally, breaking from this, I don't know what it's called, this cult that, they just want to remain in power, basically. But where's it going to come from? The Democrats are worthless. They don't have any real vision. They're worthless, but the GOP is absolutely insane. So, this is not a pretty picture.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see how this can be corrected by politics myself. Doesn't mean that I have an alternative answer. I can just appreciate that it doesn't appear that it's going to come from that angle. But Wolf's got his hand up. Fire away, Wolf.
When you're in a casino, right, the house, right, it's the house's establishment, you're a patron. Even if you have a small percentage of stock, right, in the venture itself, when you are in their establishment and you are essentially playing by house rules that you have either implicitly or explicitly agreed to, how do you expect to be able to make them change anything at all that they don't want to change, right? It's the old idea of a 1950s father saying, "It's my house. If you don't like the rules, get out." Yeah, but we funded the house. You told us it was our house, and now it's your house. This goes beyond liberals and Democrats and conservatives and Republicans, because that class of professional managers of empire aren't on anyone's side but their own. They are trapped between the bread of the top and the bread of the bottom, us, the bottom, right? The top slice of bread, the absolute corporate stakeholders in this venture. And that middle layer doesn't want to go down to become the bread level, and they do seek to rise, ideally, to the top level. So they will betray both up and down. There is no career politician that in such a captured system can be allowed by generationally vested interests to acquire disruptive power. It will not happen. Thinking that it will happen is akin to thinking that the founding fathers of the United States of America would have been able to petition and legalese their way into fair treatment. Couldn't happen. They tried that. They realized it wouldn't work. So they risked it all to escape the grip of authoritarian, self-granted authority. There's no fix from within the house to reform the house when you no longer own the house or have the means to establish a meaningful stake in it. You've been boxed out as a citizen, just like I have, from any hope ever of that coming to fruition. Now, is that a black pill? No. It is a sober appreciation of the environment that we're in and the challenges that face us. And we have two options: go back to sleep or look to the very foundation of America, the inspiring words of Jefferson, the inspiring deeds of Washington, and couch that with the troubles they faced with banking interests, which are not tied to a specific ethnic group. It's a human thing. I'm not dog whistling. And they fought multiple times to remove banking interests from the power of the state. And I'll cap this off thusly. The Bank of England, which was the central banking power in that era and remains a major power today, did not become, quote, privatized, unquote. Did not become publicly held, right? It switched ostensibly from being a privately owned entity to a, quote, publicly, a public entity in 1946. And even then, that public face, right, that public rebranding was exactly that, a rebranding. It's still subject to primarily privatized control with publicly, plausibly deniable excuses, I'll say, to frame the situation.
There's that term again, plausible deniability. Ugh. I see Par's got his hand up. Go ahead, Par.
Yeah, I did put in the nest. I found the most recent proposed bill for policing your neural information, which we need less legislation like this. We need more legislation. I want to see this become a trend where they're protecting our neural everything.
I don't know if anybody's noticed when you go to the airport and the people that voluntarily go through the scanner says Lidos on it. I am concerned that potentially there's more going on in that device than just simply scanning for weaponry. Is it possible
I'm
that
out.
there's neurological intrusion going on, scanning for other things. There's technologies that exist that state the possibility of that activity going on, not being laid at the feet of that machine currently, but might
Yeah,
we
what I will
find out
state,
in the not too distant future that everybody who's been going through those machines has had their thoughts scanned?
I've never ever walked through that machine. I even have a card, so I opt out. But what I can say is that in an airport, they say that they do not keep records of you when you're walked through the machine and what telemetry they read from you. But they don't keep them associated directly with the machine. But the NSA has equipment all over a goddamn airport, and it can pick up what the fuck that machine is getting. So they can keep it that way.
And then I wonder if it's legalese on that when they say, we don't keep this information. Does that mean that they don't give it to someone else to keep?
Bingo. Have you ever seen those political heat maps that show kind of a psycho security graph on the in-group out-group preferences that very grossly labeled Democrats and conservatives have, right? Where it shows a particular out-group affiliation or in-group affiliation.
I'm not sure of what you're referencing technically.
I'll get a slide up, but basically, if you consider a fingerprint, right, which is a physical kind of marker of your identity, right, your genetic identity, you look at someone who exercises a lot or eats a lot of junk food, right? There are physical expressions of that energy balance, the calories in, the calories out. Now, imagine if you think in a particular way, right? If they can target areas of the brain, they know which areas of the brain are involved with certain emotional responses and so on. If you happen to have a highly detectable or a highly grooved patternicity to your thought processes, i.e., a very strong religious belief, a very strong political belief, I would imagine that there are traces of that in the structure of your brain or the electrical activity of your brain. And that machine you just described, in principle, should be capable of either sensing or detecting some trace of that. So what you described, Eric, I think also is not just plausible, but likely probable. It wasn't designed to do that, but it may be modifiable to do that.
Right. I mean, you have a brain print which is unique to you. Your brain has a fingerprint that people just don't know this, but it is unique to you. And CIA has ways that they can distinguish you on this earth from other people.
100%. They can identify anybody if they know their frequency.
Yeah, it's my understanding that each person, like when your heart pumps and pushes blood down that main, not veins return, but is it I can't think of the right word. I'm thinking aorta, but I don't think it's the right word. The main.
Your jugular vein?
No, the main. Was it the veins return blood to the heart, but then there's the arteries. The main artery. Thank you. I was thinking aorta, but that wasn't right. The main artery that goes down and then splits to go off to each of your legs, where that split occurs. That pumping action. Technically makes a sound that goes and then reverberates back up, and that sound in each person is different. And science has said that that's like the sound that all of the cells in your body use to identify, like, we're all on the same team. We function for this organism. So I could shake hands with someone and my cells don't get confused by the cells of the other person that we're in contact with. We have our own individual sound signature that's started there. and that theoretically that could be read to record and individualize someone. So similar to like the sonar crew on a submarine or a Navy vessel can get a sound signature, because every vessel puts off a different sound signature. So does every human being.
Well, you have an electromagnetic frequency signature, and the government, to make sure that they could identify whether or not ET has very much developed that to the nth degree. And literally, they can identify anybody, probably from space, based on their electromagnetic signature, and they can identify if somebody is from this world or from off world using the same technology.
Yep, I totally understand, and I appreciate that technology assuredly exists. I see Par. Looks like you got your hand up again. Fire away.
Actually, I do not, but I would say, if you read that the proposed bill for policing your neural information is a good thing, because there's a lot of data they can collect about, the responses from your neural system.
I'd also contextualize matters like this. The data may not be precise. The data may not even be high fidelity, but in coordination with other data from other sources, your social media traces, it is a refining layer of added information that can make or break an identification or classification category. So it has an effect, perhaps even a layered effect, like a telescope with different lenses, right? It may magnify or leverage other intelligence efforts. So even if the technology is crude, we are not aware of how it might interact, perhaps even catalyze other technologies in a system of either diagnostics or apperception. Elections reform or perish. I tagged you in a post that very roughly and not exhaustively points out that fascism or corporativism has been baked into the DNA of the United States since I would say the first generation after all of the founders were dead, when the Bank of England and the older European financial and power interests wanted to reassert control over the project of the Republic of the United States of America. The fascist symbol is everywhere in U.S. symbology, literally everywhere.
Imagine that your neural information is incorporated with your Cambridge Analytica information.
Well, once they have done a scan of you, everybody has an address, generally speaking. We do MRIs too, going back to that assessment of hidden technology and scanning at airports. If they want to actually have tabs on everybody, they probably can. And once your personal frequency address is known, it's known.
Yeah, and I imagine trackable, accessible, able to be manipulated through the cell phone everyone carries.
The possibilities are endless, and we know that we're living in a controlled matrix, and they want to keep control, and they're pulling out all stops to apply next generation technologies to do just that.
Yeah, it's a high level of technological advancement has been accomplished unbeknownst to most people, unfortunately.
Yeah, and on this technology side, I've been thinking about this the last couple of days. It's like everybody is after, the next big thing. We're so, caught up in this idea of advancement in technology. And the real question is, where is it taking us and who benefits from it? I mean, if they stir all this up so they can put this into process because they're telling everybody, tech, your iPhone, all these goo-gaws of modernity are what you need to focus on, and let's go there and get as deep as we can. Well, who is that really serving? I don't think that it's teaching us to be better humans. It is teaching us that technology is going to control us, and we should buy into it, and I don't.
Yeah, I definitely believe that there are factions that are looking to utilize this advanced technology for the express purposes of manipulation / control.
And it is ramping up. We're living in the middle of something epical, and I'm not really sanguine that we're going to get out of this mess. But Wolf, you brought up how do we get out of this, and what you said about the founders is correct. We're in a different boat now from the standpoint, we have to stand up and fight, but how we fight's another question. And if we were to gain control of one house of the Congress and start speaking the truth, this is the beauty of the Constitution and the American experiment. And we could, if we were awakened enough and had the information and had the right coordinated approach politically, we could put new people in the seats of power that would then overturn this corrupt system. But you have to have people that are going to be willing to stand up and know what to do. But you now have almost 50% of the American public that is registered independent. You have a hard 15% on the left and right that's controlling our politics. They're all crazy. And we could do this. I'm not saying that we will, but the possibility exists. And if we don't, we're going to have conflict. I mean, like deadly conflict.
I'm concerned that that's exactly what they're looking to rile up is, civil unrest into the point of civil war. Problem, reaction, solution, Hegelian dialectic, that type of stuff.
Yeah. What a way to get rid of your enemies.
You're right about that, Eric. And the image we have in our minds of a violent rebellion or revolution is a trap. That will not come from the people. It will, if it comes, it will be instigated by the existing power structure, who will not brook any realistic challenge to their power in theaters of operation they hyper-dominate. So let me offer this for people. In their time and place, the founding fathers of the United States of America resorted as a last effort to armed rebellion after pursuing exhaustively their other avenues. And even then, it was a risky and chancy thing. There was no guarantee, and many of those people lost everything. I don't think we will have a similar core of people in the West today who have that grit and virtue. So, in the context of modern life, what rebellion and revolution really looks like is maximal withdrawal of your compliance and complicity in tyrannical and authoritarian structures, which means there is no vested political top-down fix. There is no root in that path. It is a wholly owned and co-opted system. The only option is from a grassroots level, forming communities again, purposefully avoiding fiat currency and those other establishment measures of energy economics, the energy of your money, the energy of your work efforts, the energy of your attention, and the bonds and reliances and dependencies you have on people around you. This is one of the reasons why Western nations are being flooded with non-Western immigrants. And I don't speak to the color of your skin or the ethnic or racial background you may come from. I'm talking about cultural and civilizational values. And we can see plainly there is an acidification taking place, right? A dissolution, a real-time dissolving of the underpinnings of Western culture, the meanings, right, of Western culture to make way for faceless, bland, largely interchangeable, submissive economic units. So how can you revolt or rebel in that system? By rejecting a life in that paradigm. But that requires, of course, people to be awake and aware and moderate and temperate in rejecting the use of violence, because that will give all the advantage to the authoritarians. History proves this. It shows it unequivocally. In the ancient world in the past, tyrants would be elected and given temporary powers of great authority, literally dictatorial, power. And if the people were lucky, that would be surrendered later by a noble man, like Washington did, if I understand American history correctly. I don't think we can rely on that any longer, which means if the United States of America is to be reborn and renewed as a republic of free citizens who care about life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and essentially a political instantiation of the golden and silver rules, it must be done at a grassroots level, completely rejecting Sauron and the rings of power he offers to you. If I can mix metaphors very clumsily.
Hey, Wolf, I totally agree with that statement. I don't know if you've heard me say this, but in my opinion, the world is going to go local inevitably, and it will be one of two ways. Either we will choose to go back and disaggregate power like the founders envisioned. They did not want an overly powerful federal government for a reason, and we're seeing it now. Or things are going to break apart completely, and people are going to be forced to go next door and make sure that they can eat and make sure that they've got water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just pray that the American public can have some leadership. Look, in my opinion, leadership, it really equates to one fundamental thing, and that's vision. We need to go over here, and here's why, and let's go. And people internalize and hopefully internalize, and then they will do that because it makes sense. But I don't see any leadership that's on the horizon that's going to show us the way going forward. And for that reason, I think we may end up with the latter option, which is chaos. And if that happens, if things spin apart, and I think there's a real, likelihood, frankly, that that's going to happen. Most Americans think it's going to get fixed in a year or two, and then we'll move on. I don't make that assumption. I think if this thing falls apart the way we're talking about, given the lack of fundamental skills that so many people have and our integration to this top-down system, it could be centuries before we get back on our feet, if ever. I'm afraid
I concur. I concur. It will take at least 2 generations, a minimum of 40 years, for a stable point to be reached where people can actually appreciably say, we're seeing a return on this investment, right? The people who started will not see any of the benefits. They will bequeath the possibility of those benefits to their descendants. This is hard for a lot of people to appreciate and even imagine doing.
That is the whole American ethical frame. You want to create a world that's better for your kids, and you're willing to do what you need to do to make sure that happens. And I'm afraid that everybody's living in the moment, and everybody wants stuff. They want it now, and there's no appreciation for things that are garnered over time, and that's the only way things are lasting anyway. And yeah, it's Wolf, I'm good to see it. We're back on the same page. But
now, if we consider the destabilizing effect that neural weapons can have, and let's imagine those neural weapons, DEW-based neural weapons, didn't exist, and we just had regular propaganda. That's bad enough on its own in a consumer society. But if those folks who take up this effort begin making that unleashed in crowd control situations at G20 protests and in overseas theaters of operation in urban warfare and other areas. I suspect, I can't prove it to you, Gene, if he comes back in or maybe speaks on another day, may be able to confirm this, but in theaters of war and conflict, like in the Ukraine and in Gaza and many parts of Africa, I imagine these neural weapons are undergoing live testing and refinement. Right? The Israelis, or I should, yes, the Israelis, right? There's a difference between Zionists, Israelis, and blue-collar working, everyday people who are Jewish, either religiously or ethnic. Same groups of people. And the Israelis, as a nation state, a crystallization of power and politics in the modern world, they make no bones about their use of asymmetrical warfare. They boast about it. And then they hide under a camouflage of Jew hatred, which is actually fomented and inculcated sometimes by them or their allies in order to provide operational cover for abuse. It's transparently obvious, but it riles up so many people so very easily. It's disappointing and alarming, but it also shows a level of desperation that bold transgression is willing to be engaged in nearly openly.
Well, the evangelical community that wrote, Project 2025, Heritage Foundation, they are so, joined at the hip with Israel in any way, shape, or form they can imagine. And that nexus is, they're using the United States as their funder, and the connection between Israel and the U.S. is so strong on this nefarious, array of things that we're talking about. And it's a problem. It's a real problem.
I'd go so far as to say they're not just using them, but I believe, and I don't know what to believe, but I believe more precisely, they're in full partnership with interests in the United States to effect these changes. So it's not a mere implementation. I'm sorry, it's not a mere user and thing being used relationship. I believe it's a full and willing participation, a partnership.
100% agree, and we're saying the same thing.
Excellent.
The reason I'm so sorry. Let me just close with the reason I clarified that elections is because casual listeners may not be practiced enough in their own thinking about these things to draw a distinction between being used by, which is true, but the more important nuance of a partnership, a willing use, right? Like a corporate CEO who wants to be dominated by $1,000 an hour BDSM, mistress, right? One is using the other, right? They're each using each other and they're each deriving a different benefit in what to outsiders looks like a very perverse relationship.
Who would have thought that in 2026 we would see fascism in America, because we have become essentially a front for the Fourth Reich? Look at where all this power originated from within NASA and all the paperclip folks that we brought over, and Israel. Those two forces are creating a fascist reality for the entire Western world right now, and it is scary as fuck.
And the British Empire, or the Crown, is the third leg in that tripod. U.S., the British, right? I shouldn't say the British, I should say the Crown, and the Zionists or the Israelis, right? And then you have the Vatican, right? So essentially, much more grossly, you have a Vatican banking intelligence triad, which exists in multiple countries in a kind of a corporatized interlocking directorate of multi-stakeholder, multi-shareholder ownership and venture projects that some of them cooperate more or less closely with each other to prosecute and achieve.
It's an unholy alliance. They control media. And I'm not saying that that's one particular group, but this powers above alliance that we're describing, they control every bit of the high ground. And they will use, it's not, fascism is when corporate and government interests merge and a sprinkling of religiosity. Well, you've got all that, but you also have tech, you have culture, you have this increasing pace of modern life where people don't have the ability to even consider what's happening, and you have to keep moving ahead. These people are pushing this so hard and so fast right now, and it's not going to have a good end.
I just want to say I appreciate everything you guys are saying in that exchange, and don't disagree with any bit of it. I just want to welcome. We have a new speaker to the panel here who has their hand up. So just before we get too far ahead of what they may wish to be engaging, I'm just going to offer Zane77 the opportunity to jump in. Zane's been listening for a little bit. Never seen you in one of these spaces before, Zane. So please just do me a favor, keep it pertinent to the conversation, and fire away.
Thank you, Erica. Much appreciated. And yeah, I'm still very much new to this X space. What's driven me here is obviously, I guess, what's driven everyone else here, the nature of reality. And this conversation right here is really deep, and it really touched and resonated with me. And I thought it was a perfect opportunity to kind of insert some of the newest technologies that I believe is also leading in this course of manipulation, which is artificial intelligence. It's just amazing to me that Elon Musk just the other day comes out with this concept of singularity, and that we might be reaching that in 2026. But AI in and of itself is an amplifier. It's an amplifier of the human mind in consciousness, and can also expand on that division, which helps the control mechanism keep us at bay. And I think this directly relates to what we were speaking about before, and correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, but really this matrix and control system, and utilizing their studies and understanding of how to manipulate emotions, different human behaviors, is going to be amplified again through the use of AI and the way people have access to it now. I come from a time where there was no cell phones at one point, and magically, after certain tragic events, now everyone has this technology, or is forced to have this technology. And it's just interesting, again, to hear this conversation. And I think it's a good point to enter this concept of AI and what it's going to do for our future.
Yeah, I definitely think AI is part of this overreaching dilemma for sure.
When it comes to this control mechanism, and I just want to get some clarification here. You were talking before about, this at a larger scale. We're talking at a world level in terms of, you said the Western Hemisphere. We're talking about Europe and them working together. I was hoping that someone could elaborate on that, because could it be that this system is actually much larger than that, and that everything here in terms of its control mechanism is keeping us away from the spirituality of humans? For me, there has to be a balance between human spirituality as well as this control system. I've always believed that the control system, to an extent, if balanced correctly, will allow the proper growth. We've done some amazing things, but I was hoping someone could elaborate in terms of who's behind this control aspect, or what the beliefs are. I know nobody probably has the answers to that exactly, but just to elaborate on that.
I can offer something right away. I would leave all of that. What you're hinting at is not something of no value, but something of different value. We're not just comparing apples and oranges here. We're comparing something like matter and energy, right? They're related, but they're very distinct in their own spheres. So spirituality will animate your morals, your principles, and I think of the term spirituality as one being denuded from anyone's particular definition of whatever God is. If we take the word God to mean an ultimate limiting principle outside yourself that you're subject to, that you may not edit, right? Call that God, right? Whatever the God of your understanding is, whatever your fidelity to that code is the root of your spirituality. But in the real tangible world, we don't need to think too deeply about how to fight in a spiritual realm, because we don't exist purely in a spiritual realm. We exist primarily here on Earth with other human beings, with the environments and technologies that we cultivate. So that should be the primary focus. If there are non-human factors involved in this, I can't appreciably or meaningfully counter them, but I can participate here, now, within human dimensions that are provable and relatable to the vast majority of humans on this planet, without ignoring spirituality, but without misfocusing my attentions on the ephemeral, and instead clearly keeping my eyes, my ears, and my attention and my efforts to where I can maximize utility and leverage the power of people I choose as trusted and vetted peers. So fireside chat is a lot different than practical politics encountering predatory power. And how's that for onomatopoeia and alliteration?
Zane, I'll take a swing at this. And it's related but separate. It's like, I think you asked who is really in charge. I believe that, MJ12 was real, is real, and they have been leading the charge as far as this modern control mechanism that probably has other powers above that from ancient times, probably since the beginning of mankind. We've always been in a control system. So are they doubling down to make sure that modern humanity is not enlightened and taking the reins of its own, sovereignty? I think absolutely 100% yes. And I think you asked about the spirituality aspect. They don't want us to grow our strength spiritually, morally, and physically. They want us to be subjective. So I think they're doing everything they can to cloud any spiritual understanding that might have been passed down and is extant in the world as much as they possibly can through technology, through culture. They're trying to keep us confused and dumbed down and separated. And because if we do find our inner light and our commonality, then we might be able to fight this fucking machine that's fucking us. But they don't want that to happen. So this machinery of control is ancient. It is now being put into a modern frame with all the pieces that we've been talking about that are, multifaceted and confusing for so many people to make sense of in each individual piece. But then when you take it collectively, there's a reason people are wandering around and just don't really have a clue what the fuck's going on. So this is a pretty deep system of fuckery that they've created, and it's been quite effective. And I think that they're ramping it up in an algorithmic but rooms like this, and there are people that are waking up. We've got to keep talking and sharing what we, and maybe we can find some common basis to fight. It'll be easy.
I think that's fantastic what you were just saying, elections picks about this being a problem for a very long time. And I've mentioned this before publicly, but if people want to get educated on that concept, there's a wonderful book by Jim Marrs called Rule by Secrecy. And it basically gives folks an education on how these power structures have functioned from Sumerian times all the way through until contemporary times. It's a referenceable topic, and the rule by secrecy has been a problem for we the people since time immemorial.
That is amazing that you said that. I'm looking at that book right now. Jim Marrs is just from the standpoint I was because I do have some questions I'm probably going to post to you privately on this whole do thing.
Yeah, Simeon's a really good dude. So he introduced me at the second event I attended. I met him the year before when he was giving his presentation, and the topic of ball lightning came up, and we had a wonderful conversation. About ball lightning and earthquake generating technology. So I'm really happy to have met Simeon. And I'm glad you took the time to take a look at that presentation that I did this past summer for Snippy. I think somebody like you will get a lot out of it. It's a bit deep for newbies, but you're not a newbie on the topic. So yeah, I'd be happy to answer questions you might have about that in the future.
And, we run across a lot of brilliant people in these spaces. Simeon Hine is one of the smartest motherfuckers I've ever met in my life. I really love that guy.
Eric, in that book, Rule by Secrecy, by Jim Marrs, he broaches the idea of a breakaway civilization. And for folks who might be intimidated by that term or think it is too draped in science fiction-y elements, simply consider it a gated community, but not at a neighborhood level, but at a nation state level. And then, of course, at a global level. So there are tiers of gated communities that people move to for all the same reasons that you or I might want to move to a gated community or an HOA or any other system where you can more comfortably be with your kind of kind. Make sense?
Absolutely, Wolf. And just taking that thought, those ideas, I have gone into a thought experiment, so to say, right? This is an idea that I've considered. I'm not trying to pontificate that this is what I believe to be the truth. It's just a concept I've considered. Having read Rule by Secrecy by Jim Marrs and realizing the power structures and all that could be possible, I have considered, is there potentially like an eighth continent that maybe we don't know about? Like maybe somewhere in the middle of the Pacific, maybe they have the power to wipe it off all of our maps. Maybe there's some massive level of control that's been going on for so long. Is that really impossible when you start to look at the dilemma and how long it's been going on for? These are just thoughts that I've toyed around with in my head. Is how fucked could we actually be and have no fucking clue?
I wouldn't myself go as far as something as large as a continent, but certainly islands. And even if that isn't the case, the Earth is so very large, right? It truly is large, despite us having world maps and desktop globes and software and internet access to peer at things. The world is so very large that you could very easily either hide or conceal or camouflage such an area. And ideally, I think that would not ideally, I think more practically that would be represented with an underground facility, right? If you take as a proof of concept the cave city of Derinkuyu in Turkey, Derinkuyu, Derinkuyu. That is an underground city, literally carved out of stone soft enough for that purpose. It's real. You can visit it. You can find a lot of information online about it. And the very romantic and hyper-fictionalized talk in the West of deep underground military bases, it doesn't need to be draped in that kind of ominous terminology. Restricted facilities, right? We have restricted airspace. We have restricted areas of geography and military technology and presence on bases. I'm sure to escape the prying eyes of orbital platforms, you would go underground. And you yourself, Eric, talked about that in the context of Long Island and a couple of facilities out on the eastern third of that island. Yes?
Absolutely, totally following. And yes, you're right. These are way more practical concepts. I was just being honest with the ideas that I have toyed around with, and it was just for the express purpose, technically, of illustrating a possibility, not necessarily a probability, as illustrated.
It is childlike thinking in the best possible way. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Elections.
No big deal. I would proffer that think of it more like cells. I mean, you probably have people that are plugged into this control mechanism all over the planet, part of ancient ruined structures that have passed down, secrets and lineage and abilities over time, and they're probably literally everywhere on the planet, and they're connected in ways that we don't quite understand. But I think that that's a more plausible reality. And are they underground? Yes, no question. And Darren Kuyu in Cappadocia and all ancient Anatolia, particularly post the flood, and Göbekli Tepe, and that was certainly a meeting point. But yeah, they were the underground abilities and presence, even as far as paraterrestrials, and whether or not there might be some ancient human lineage that's been extant here on this planet, even though we're not fully aware of it. That's a real possibility, but I think that what you've got is a bunch of rich, controlling interests they know how to hide themselves because they perfected that means over thousands and thousands of years, and they're still on the scene.
See, we got Zane with his hand up again. Fire away, Zane.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some patterns that are related to this conversation, and we kind of touched on them, but it's interesting. We have some senators talking about underwater bases potentially as well. We have the ancient temples all over the world. There's star alignments. We're talking about, even some of the basic petroglyphs that we're seeing in different regions of the world. And even the story of Atlantis kind of connects to this, if I'm not mistaken. Again, just talking in the realm of possibilities, not that probability, as you were mentioning before, but it's just interesting, the patterns. And even in modern day today, those connections are still being made. And it's just great to hear.
Yeah, and I think historically speaking, one of the less discussed concepts of power being wielded secretly, I think it's obvious to me that back in the day, the greatest powers would have been those that were the greatest presence on the sea, those that could navigate the oceans, go from port to port, that they could have secret ports that, unbeknownst to others. I think there was a level of power that came in the piracy days, and that I think there were ancient navies and powerful seafarers that would have been wielding what would have been advanced technologies for the time, and had the ability to be involved in what we were just saying before, like a breakaway civilization, like a group that is able to operate unbeknownst to most, using the term landlubber. If you were a landlubber, well, then you didn't know what the hell was going on by those that, had powerful navies. You just suffered under them.
Real quickly, Eric, I was glad that you mentioned that about breakaway civilization. Dolan gets all the credit, but if you go back and listen to what he says carefully, he gives some direct credit to Jim Mars on that observation. That's something they cooked up together, frankly.
I'm sorry, Pix, who did you say is getting the credit?
Dolan, Richard Dolan.
Oh, Dolan, thank you.
Dolan is the one voice that I have few to no qualms about in terms of trust and surety in his sanity in the topics of conversation related to all of this stuff. He has shown his bona fides to be fair.
I think some other folks that discuss the conversation of breakaway civilization that are doing well with their research is also Walter Bosley and Joseph P. Farrell. But it looks like we have a new speaker to the panel. count something or other with their hand up. So come on in, sir, and please keep it pertinent.
I think that's Screen.
Oh yeah, this is Screen. I just go by Screen, and y'all kind of caught my attention with what you're talking about. I started doing a little research into this area because of commonalities I kept running into in like inner Earth stories or from old indigenous cultures. They would talk about people that were kind of before them with more advanced technologies and like different types of stuff. And there's a real old famous Japanese case that I'm having a brain fart on right now, but it's like the most famous case everybody talks about, where this lady shows up in a little like octagon type of craft from the sea, and she has red hairs, wearing robes and sandals, speaks a different language. They didn't know what to do with her, so they kind of put her back in and kicked her out to sea. It starts with a U. It's not Uba Tuba, but it's like something like that. But basically, they were describing Phoenician style of dress, and the Phoenicians were what you were describing, the ancient power on the sea that we would mostly refer to as Atlantis. And when you get into the work of, oh man, what's his name? Freddie Silva, he talks about the Shining Ones and how they essentially, this group went around building the pyramids and teaching the knowledge of light to everybody, because if you know how light works, you can pretty much do anything, right? Any technology, anything you can think of if you know how light works. And so that seems to be like the big core thing, like core secret, was this group that kind of had what most people would say would be, hidden knowledge that is passed down in secret societies and stuff. But this group, the Phoenicians, could possibly be that type of group and, keep going on in secret and be like this breakaway type of civilization that everybody is looking for, which I find very interesting. And I haven't finished a lot of research on it, but I'll put what I have in the nest or in the comments.
Also, the lore about Oannes that came to the ancient Sumerians and gave them their start came from the sea.
Yep. Who was that you said, Pix? The lore of whom?
Oannes, Oeneas, Oannes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's where the mitre hat comes from. He supposedly had a hat in the shape of a fish, and that's where the papal mitre is traced to.
Gotcha. Go for it, Wolf. I see you got your hand up.
I saw that Zane had his hand up earlier. I'd like to wait for him to go first, please.
Oh, honestly, I didn't have my hand up, but I do want to just get a quick point in from what Count was talking about earlier. Yeah, in fact, I believe what you're referring to also was written down into ancient texts, and that's how it was made aware of. And if I remember the picture correctly, it did look like an octagonal UFO-looking craft that came out of the ocean from what the stories show. But I just want to represent a couple more patterns in there. You're talking about some of the Turkish caves that, an abandoned civilization that runs, I forget how deep into the ground. But now we're even talking about some of the Peruvian aspects of Nazca and what they're observing down there. The patterns are undeniable, and at least to my opinion. I can't say anything is, gives credence to any conclusion, but the patterns are there, and it's very interesting. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And that's why I'll post a couple posts I've done on it so far, because I put them side by side. Like, I took the directions of how they make the ark, the clothing and stuff of the Phoenicians, and then I highlighted, everything from that case of the description. So, you can see it side by side. It's kind of eye-opening when you do it like that.
Eric, do you remember during the Iran-Contra affair, or roughly around that time, when Senator John Sununu, I believe he was from Hawaii, he was a military veteran, I believe he had lost his left arm, he kind of shut down an open session when the matter of continuity of government became broached and they wanted to move to a closed session. That concept, COG, continuity of government, that is merely a modern re-expression of something older, which is parents want to bequeath and leave to their children a better world where they have advantages against their enemies or competitors or rivals, friendly, hostile, or otherwise. Well, we can think, of course, of any human power system that becomes a blend of human-based power and institutional power. The institutions are a leverage point for that human power. That structure itself will, of course, seek some measure of continuity of government. And ideally, it will happen as a, quote, power behind the throne, unquote, because that is a way to camouflage your existence and exist in the open, right, with plausible deniability. So that concept itself, continuity of government, that likely goes back tens of thousands of years to the first human beings who had a high degree of in-group preference, competing in an environment of scarce resources or scarce opportunities with other rival groups, right? And you would leave a legacy of power, technology, culture, favor trading, whatever you can imagine as a survival benefit, and you would bequeath that to your heirs openly or with subterfuge as a form of continuity of government that would not ever go away. It is a fundamental element of game theory.
They also live through catastrophes, which makes your point. And I think the senator you were trying to identify was Inouye, Senator Inouye. Sununu is from New Hampshire.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, I'm totally familiar with it, and I was going to also offer the same correction. I was like, wasn't that Inouye? But yes, I'm very familiar with it, and in regards to the conversation of continuity of government, I would highly recommend people start paying attention, if they haven't already, to Daniel List, Dark Journalist on YouTube. I believe is doing a great service to humanity by bringing up this topic and the problems for we the people because of its existence. I think he's doing excellent work in research. He works with Joseph P. Farrell and Walter Bosley, who I had mentioned previously, and I enjoy calling these three people the Holy Trinity of Truth right now, just because I find it fun to say that. Lots of times people criticize me because I'm critical of so many other people, and I would say with good reason. So I would offer that I don't just throw stones at everybody. There are people that I would say you should pay attention to, that I believe are doing good research and connecting the dots correctly, in my opinion. I would highly recommend paying attention to all three of those gentlemen.
Here on that. As far as continuity of government, that has a direct relationship with the establishment of the national security state, the modern national security state, MJ-12, and this controlling mechanism that we've been talking about. They're one and the same. Not completely, but pretty close.
And I would imagine that the American continuity of government faction communicates with the other nation state continuity of government factions, because my belief, looking at the recurring cycles of history, is that it's a rich versus the poor thing. I don't believe there's a lot of poor people engaged in the conversation of the continuity of anything. So I believe that this is the rich preparing to be able to push their boot on the throats of the poor even harder whenever the need arises.
In terms of a systems view, I agree with the rich-poor framing, but a higher order systems view that helps kind of remove emotion from that is stakeholders and their peers, peer-level actors, right? Of course, they would cooperate with each other because they are the most richly, they are allies or rivals with the greatest utility or threat assessment levels.
Fair enough. How about another choice of words? How about stakeholders versus their competition?
That too, right? Rivals that fuck, fight, frolic, feud, and have fun, depending on the circumstances. But the idea of peers is an important one because we all naturally exist in a world of peers or social classes or castes like in India. And our entire set of power structures in the West has seemingly been co-opted by men and women and hybrid human corporate interests, human institutional interests that don't view the electorate and the citizenry as peers or even wards anymore that they should exert noble guardianship over. It is instead a very resentful, very sneering, deprecating, look down a nose of, filthy eaters, animals, plebs. You can see that openly in a city like Philadelphia, where drug zombies are allowed to exist in open areas of absolute depravity and atrocity, essentially as a warning to everyone to toe the line or end up there. It can always get worse for you, citizen. Obey.
Yeah, I welcome guys. Thank you for having me to the speaker spot. Wolf, I agree with what you're saying entirely. Um, I did want to chime in. I watched the newest episode of Fallout last night, and one of the main characters in the lore, if you know anything about the games, is there's this gentleman Robert House, right? And he is trying to save his home city of Las Vegas. In this coming nuclear fallout that's going to happen, and one of the lines he says in the show is that if I'm betting on the house always winning, what happens when I'm not the house? And I found that line very intriguing and very pertinent to what we're talking about today, right? When you are not the house, how should you act amidst a scenario of almost uncertain or almost certain loss mathematically, right? And he goes into all this other stuff. But basically, I wanted to bring up that line because I felt it was very powerful last night when I was listening to it. And then joining this space this morning, I was like, oh man, these guys are right on the money. Like, you guys have been doing awesome this morning. So I just want to thank all the speakers. Zane, you were awesome. Par, you're always great. Elections, thank you so much. Eric, thank you for hosting. You've done a great job, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you. A lot of
Yeah, you got it.
synchronicity.
I actually watched that episode last night as well, so it's just pretty funny, coincidental that you brought that up. But yeah, what happens when you're not the house? When you think you are. I was even thinking earlier when Wolf was discussing the whole idea of the casino, and we came around again to the term of like stakeholders. Imagine you're a stakeholder in the casino, and then all of a sudden, the people that are supposed to be working for you and operating it the way that you designed it to be operated start changing the rules. And now you as a stakeholder in supposedly your own home are now having things go awry and you're being treated poorly. And it's an interesting analogy.
Yeah, pray for the writers of that television show. They're dropping some gems, man. I'm surprised. I was not very sure because the last game that they had come out with was kind of lackluster. But the show, whoever's doing the writing is doing a great job, and they are asking some very pertinent questions. But yeah, 100% the idea of the casino, right? We can kind of extrapolate that out to military contractors and stuff like that. But yeah, there's this idea that, right, you think you're the house, but you're not really the house. And what happens when you find out you're not the house? What are you going to do? What are the actions you're going to take? And yeah, absolutely, 100%, Eric.
Yeah, I've never played the game. The show showed up on my radar. I started watching it, and I do find it very intriguing. the way that they're presenting some contemporary dilemmas through the script. So yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend if you ever go due to play any of the games. I recommend Fallout New Vegas, which is the one Mr. Robert House appears in the most, and he is like sort of a mainstay in that game, as it were. So yeah, interesting stuff. And you as a player get to interact with him and decide the future of Las Vegas in that game at that particular time when you come out as the character. It's a different time than the show takes place, but it's a the show takes place beforehand, so it's kind of interesting to see what they're writing in beforehand.
Yeah, I definitely think we're having a very good mental jam space today. So I thank everybody that's been involved so far. This has been a good one.
Absolutely. Well, I'll let you guys go. I'm going to drop down to listener. I do have some stuff to get done today, so I'll be listening along. Thank you guys again for all your inputs. It's been great. I'm enjoying the conversation.
You got it, sir. Have an excellent morning.
Good morning, Eric, and Pix, and everybody. How you guys all doing?
I'm a little bit low on coffee, but I'll live.
Man, I saw the title of this, I think, last night or super early this morning, and I couldn't get here at 10, and I really wanted to. Did you go through the gamut of directed energy weapons? Did I miss all that?
It was kind of on the front end. There's an article that Parr threw up in the nest, from which I read the article this morning and just had some comments in regards to that article, a couple of criticisms about how this information is being presented. And I guess I would say the long and short of it is I'm happy that the conversation has finally gotten around to this technology on a more public scale. I've certainly been trying to do due diligence to bring this conversation up. I'm critical of how this single person from the Venezuela event is being spotlighted and how the information is being, I guess you would say, rolled out in a way that appears to me to be narrative control and perception management of a very important topic. So it's bittersweet to me. I'm happy the topic's out there, but I'm a little disturbed as to the what seems to be the machinations to control the conversation on the topic.
Roger that. So when you were down south, and I do recall watching you on that disclosure thing, there did, if I understood you right, there's a radar system down there in place, and you believe that, correct?
I apologize, sir. You were rugging a little bit. If you could just please repeat that. I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, I'm having a bad connection day. It seems like yesterday everybody else had a bad connection day. Today it's me. When you were in Antarctica, I believe I heard you say at one point that there's a radar system in place in the ice, and you believe that is a directed energy weapon, correct?
I'll give greater clarification. There are two systems in the ice. One is represented as a science facility known as the Ice Cube Neutrino Detector or Ice Cube Lab. I do believe that has more than what's presented as science and puts it in the category of directed energy weaponry. Second to that system, there is an ELF system, a standard ELF system, which could, with limited research required, be shown to be potentially a directed energy weapons platform also. The dilemma with that one is that I was originally told that the system was dysfunctional and not operating. I learned that that was not true. So it is operational. So I brought that information to light. The third system is a green laser that I observed firing from there with great regularity. So officially, I have blown the whistle on what I believe are 3 directed energy weapons systems down there.
Very cool, very cool. In I think it was 1991 or 92, I was TDY'd several times to White Sand, New Mexico, and I got to be, I wasn't working on this project, so I'm going to make that clear. I happened to be there for a different project, but they test fired their laser, and it was one of the first test fires on an airborne object, and the laser itself was housed in 2 separate buildings. One building, I believe, had something to do with cooling the laser, and the other was the laser itself. And it was a Navy project. And what they were working on was aim it with gyroscopes. And I'll tell you what, when that thing shot, they had I believe it was a guided, either an F4 or an A5, I can't recall, but it was an aircraft and it was remote controlled. And man, they blew that thing right out of the sky. And that was in 91, I believe. Could have been 92. But since then, obviously, the size of the instrument has shrunk significantly. And they've got the aiming aspects of it, pretty down pat. I'm curious, have you ever heard of a EMP energy system?
Yeah, I have.
That's something that it's out there and it's real. And in my first book, there's a brief synapse of it, but is, I believe at this point, deployable on a fighter aircraft or a fighter aircraft. And it has the ability to focus up to 100 EMP bursts in directional ability, meaning it can be aimed and pinpointed. That one is kind of freaky.
In my brain, I just imagine it being similar at the very least to how bell functions for sound or a laser functions for light. It's just the ability to directionally focus a particular, in this case, would be focused stream of EMP activity.
Yeah, and imagine it shrink down to a pod size and deployable. And like I say, a fighter aircraft, or it could possibly on maybe, helo systems or drone. Came to me, my knowledge of that system came to me around, I want to say it was after 9/11, but before, I want to say 2010, so like 2007, 8, 9, in that range. And it was housed, the system was housed and tested out in Nevada. And it was supposedly a very, very impressive thing. All this to say, I'm glad I'm on this side.
Makes me think that with this whole Venezuela situation, radar going out and the power going down, I mean, an EMP technology like that should be able to accomplish that with great ease.
Bingo. Yep, you got that.
Do everybody a favor. Drop a link to your books in the Purple Pill if anybody wants to get educated on your experience and understanding of things. You know, around.
You know, I would put, but I'm sorry I talked over you. You broke up a little bit. I would. Put
No worries. Go ahead. Just so the purple pill is hand corner, and you should be able to just copy and paste the link from wherever you have. For sharing your experiences on that, by the way, and going so far as to throw out the years. I think that's one of the things that is going to blow people away. You know, that this stuff was going on back in 1991. So, you know, appreciate that that's your experience, but resist that years already full when I know.
Yeah, the funny thing, this was the actual first live test on a you know, so I didn't really know anything about it before. I knew what the building was, and I knew what they were doing in there, but I was there for another reason, and you know, be test firing this thing at such and such hours, and so everybody is going to either have to be, you know, in section A, B, or C, whatever. And one thing that part is funny, where they cool the laser was a building about the size of maybe an outbuilding on a farm, you know, maybe about 80 foot by 40 foot, probably 2 stories tall. And the cooling process, they use fluorine gas. And a lot of the people that came out there flew into Las Cruces from DC, and a lot of them rented vehicles, and they parked their vehicles along this building. And when they cooled the laser, they dumped the fluorine gas, and it ruined probably 25 vehicles. The fluorine gas hit the windshield glass and frosted it. So that was kind of funny.
Kind of funny. Little details. Interesting.
Pix out here. Hope you're doing well, Pix. Nice to see you.
Wonder the benefits of the super cold winter time. The function of being fire.
Yeah, we've been busier than hell. So coming into your spaces, fucking with it.
But I and share it, help to spread to conversation. So thank you in advance. Go ahead.
working with the Americans, the Russians and Chinese potentially would have wanted him out of the picture as well. Again, all speculation, but you know, it was interesting. And then all of a sudden, boom, direct energy weapon conversation.
Yeah, it seems to me that there's narrative control going on, and I guess time will tell as to, you know, how this is going to pan out. But regardless, great that directed energy weapons are being discussed. As you mentioned, I hammered down on that in the Sean Ryan interview because my understanding and experience is that this is a situation that's unbeknownst to most, unfortunately.
One follow-up question with the direct energy weapons. What is the spectrum of direct energy weapons? Meaning like the scale of not physical size of these weapons, but what could it be used to really, and obviously I see death, right? That's potentially one, but even at a more minor scale, and is that what we were talking about with like just basic manipulation?
I would say that it's very multifaceted, and I could not do as much justice to answering that question as I would direct you to somebody that can bring you up to speed very fast. And his name is Dr. James Giordano. 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 And I would say he's the go-to guy that explains this stuff very well and in depth as far as the massive amounts of options that they put on the table for those that are wielding such weapons.
Thank you so much. We got Ruled by Secrecy, we got the Dark Journalist, we got Dr. Giordano. Yeah, I'm gonna step down and listen more. I have to go back into my matrix and get back to work. But thank you so much again.
Yeah, you got it, Zane. And even just for greater specificity on the James Giordano, he did a video that's on YouTube. I actually pulled it. It's on my website. You should be able to just dig back a few pages. But he spoke at West Point to the up and coming cadets. He was brought in, I guess, as like a consultant to educate them as the future leaders of the military in regards to the weapons of the modern day battlefield, which he referred to as the battlefield of the mind. That, this is the direction these weapons are going. So it's a very awesome presentation that he gives. And that was back in 2018. And he's spoken a lot since then. So I think you will. I think you'll really enjoy digging into that guy to answer that question for yourself.
Wow, thank you again. Yeah, really looking forward to it. I've always had a niche for neuroscience, and even in some of my classwork, it's I couldn't help but think that how these tools can be weaponized, since the mind is so intricate and like a sponge per se, and it's also much like a transmitter in its own sense. But thank you again. It's been a pleasure speaking with everyone. You all have a good day. I look forward to listening.
In that regard, on that topic of cognitive warfare, I was recently involved in a documentary titled that, Mind Control, Cognitive Warfare, also available. You can find it on deciphering.tv. It's either on like the first or second page of videos, but a good documentary which, discusses the problems of cognitive warfare in the modern world. And I think folks might be able to pull a lot of information out of that documentary as well. I was talking while clicking. I approved somebody else to come up, and I'm not seeing the new person, and I forget who I even clicked on. But by all means, if anybody's got 2 cents to throw in, roll on up. officially out of coffee now, too. Wah, wah, wah. In the grand scheme of the debacles of the world. Yesterday, I noticed I was down to one last coffee filter for the machine. So I had to run out, obviously, and get more coffee filters yesterday. And I went to the store, and at the moment that I got to the registers, the register system went down. So everybody was freaking out. Can't make their electronic purchases. Oh, my God. And then one of the other customers walking through the store mentioned that there was another register in the back end that was accepting cash-only transactions. And I thought that was fantastic because I was going to pay cash. And now I could continue with my transaction while everybody else was flipping out because apparently they didn't possess cash. I thought that was pretty insightful to the dilemmas of the world right now.
This is going to be hilarious. You remember how in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, before the debit card become the currency of choice? I don't know about you, but every night I would empty my pockets and throw all the change in a big jar, big Tupperware, and just let it build up. And one day, a year or 2 years later, cash it in, and that would be fun money. Since all this credit, debit, electronic cash, I don't really have any more change. And so, you know what I collect now? $20 bills from the grocery store. And now all the $20 bills go into a big bucket and find their way into the safe at some point.
I just want to say thanks to Kiwi. I noticed that that link for the James Giordano presentation to the cadets at West Point was posted. So thank you, Kiwi. And yeah, I highly recommend everybody take a look at that one. It's really good stuff. Good morning, Mr. Kimball. Welcome to the speaker panel. Hope you're having a wonderful morning.
Hey, what's up, Eric? So I first time I've heard you talk about this green laser down there, and I know that in my alma mater, the university I was at, they had a huge green laser that would shoot straight up into the air, and they were using it to apparently study like the atmosphere and weather stuff. So I don't know if maybe that's something similar that was going on down there. I imagine being right near the South Pole could be advantageous to study the weather in a similar fashion. But yeah, it was a big green laser, and it wasn't every night, but I don't know, maybe once or twice a week you could see it at night shooting straight up into the air. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool sight to see. And absolutely, Kimball, it is my understanding that the pretense is that it's there for weather. I question whether it's exclusively doing that for many reasons. So, I'm just coming from an angle that, everything bad comes under the presentation of something good. And when, things are kind of secreted away and less than discussed, I start to want to move the conversation from the primary presentation towards what could be secondary or tertiary applications. It's at least worthy of consideration that things may not be as presented.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, oh, here's our huge laser that we use to study the weather.
Right.
Wink, wink.
Exactly. The Antarctic Treaty prohibits there being any weaponry there, any military activities. So if you wish to engage in those activities, you are going to need a cover story. With that being said, precedent has already been set because back in the 60s in Greenland, there was a supposedly scientific facility being installed by the United States, which turned out to be an attempt at sneaking in a nuclear missile base. So these things do happen. And just on that note, I've watched videos on the construction of the facility in Greenland. It is literally the same exact construction technique that was used to build the tunnel archway system at the South Pole Station. And I mean literally the exact same setup. So if you're going to build a military secret facility in Greenland in the ice, since the environment is just a hunk of ice, that blueprint would work at the South Pole Station also. So it's literally like cookie cutter at that point. They could just take the same set of plans and be like, we're building one here, we're building one there.
Yeah, well, I guess if we've got the same laser here, then it's safe to say my area is definitely safe from the aliens.
There you go.
Hey, Eric, on that connection to Greenland, I would follow up that story as hard as you possibly can, given things that are happening. And Kimball, you okay? You sound like you're under the weather, man.
Oh, just a tiny little head cold going on.
Carry on.
Kimball, I highly recommend you get some hot and sour soup from your local Chinese food place and throw some hot mustard in there. It'll clean you right out.
I did that. You suggested that last time, and it did work.
It totally does, man. I forget where I got that advice, but man, yep, hot and sour soup with some of that Asian hot mustard in there. Whew, it'll just clean you right out. The tastiest medicine you could ever have.
Yeah, I love hot and sour soup.
Eric, I'm going to dip for a minute. This has been a fun conversation. I will try to get back soon. Everybody have a great day.
You know what, Pix? Have an excellent day. And actually, I think I'm going to wrap this up as well because I'm getting a little bit hungry, which normally ends the space. I probably could have suffered on through some more hunger, but I actually did have an important phone call come in during this conversation today that I'm going to have to attend to some stuff this afternoon. And I should probably just be more proactive going in that direction. Normally, I don't have things going on, being a lazy, unemployed motherfucker, right, with nothing better to do. But this afternoon, technically, I now have something better to do. So I want to just make sure that I'm on top of my game for what I have going on this afternoon. This was an excellent conversation, folks. I really appreciate everybody's input. And like I said before, if you can give me a follow, if you're not following me, take a look at my X Space stuff and, give me some likes, some comments, some retweets. That would be, really appreciated. And then also I have a website, deciphering.tv, where I, have interviews that I've done with people. Where I've interviewed them. There's interviews of other people that have asked me questions. I try to consolidate that into one location so that people can, find this information easily. There's also an archives section on there with some documentation that's pertinent to these conversations. And I'm just I'm doing my best to fight an uphill battle. So many hands makes light work. And if people can throw any energy in this direction to make it less of a daunting task, I would appreciate that entirely. A rising tide raises all ships. So I'm not cynical. I do believe in the power of we the people, and that if we do work together, we absolutely can overcome and make the world a better place for our children, which is, to me, a very noble goal. So everybody, have an excellent day, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Enjoy your day and be well.
Have a great day, everyone. See you later.